It's in World Alternative Media here, and I am joined by the one and only Cynthia McKinney. And it's amazing how many things you have accomplished, and it's amazing that we haven't yet been able to talk. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for being at Redfield Expo, and I guess I have to thank G. Edward Griffin for inviting me.
And you know a thing or two about the deep state. Of course, you had questioned Donald Rumsfeld all those years ago.
Well, if you can give me information to that effect.
I'm sure you are interested in all of the information that I have, and I'll be more than happy to provide it to you.
Good, thank you.
But I would also like to get information from you.
But I wanted to kind of go into the idea of voluntarism with you. So the idea of individuals ruling themselves outside of government. Not to say no government, but moreover voluntary governance. What are your thoughts on the ideas of voluntarism?
Well, I think I prefer, instead of using the word government, that I like to speak in terms of governance. And what that does is that it allows us to get outside of this huge superstructure that's called government, and then look at how we organize ourselves in order to accomplish the goals that the community and the individuals in the community set.
So like power centers.
Well, I call them power cells, right? But right, exactly. And so the government, well, government is not responsive to the needs of the people anymore. And so what is the alternative structure that we need to build, that we need to create, so that we can realize what it is that we want to do? What's the quality of life that we're looking for? What kind of values do we want our life to represent? And then in terms of policies that are carried out by the community, how does that look? And so I think we've got to start thinking in ways that we haven't thought before, in very non-traditional, non-conventional ways. And that would include even the structure of a government, and thinking about ways in which we can stop thinking about governments and think about governance.
And what have you learned most since being that dirty word that we call politician several years back? What is the greatest rabbit hole that you've gone down since you've been in government?
The greatest rabbit hole.
Like, what's something that you've learned since being in government that you kind of wish, I suppose, when you were...
No? Oh, well, one, that it's all fake. That was really a very sad moment for me when I served on the House International Relations Committee, and the particular subcommittee, I think it was Western Hemisphere Subcommittee, was having a hearing, and the chairman of the subcommittee was there. I was on the subcommittee, so I was there. And then the committee, or the subcommittee, were interviewing, had a panel of witnesses that were being questioned by the subcommittee members. And it looked like it was a normal event. Then, all of a sudden, the chairman of the subcommittee, we sit down, we go through the hearing. The chairman of the subcommittee is fussing at the witness. And the witness is antagonistic toward the chairman of the subcommittee. So there's some friction. There's electricity. There's something happening in the air. After the hearing is over, the chairman backslaps the witness, and they walk out together. It was just theater. Didn't like the saddest thing for me to realize that it was all just theater, didn't really mean anything. And that's probably the harshest lesson, but that's the realest lesson.
And while this point might not be as popular among this crowd, while I do have great respect for everyone that's speaking here at the Red Pill Expo, and Ed Griffin is a great friend of ours, I've noticed that going back as far as you can look, every president has ran on the potential for change. We've seen that for a couple hundred years now, and we've seen that with Bush. He actually talked about auditing the Federal Reserve when he was running. Obama, change we can believe in, the first black president. That sounds very anti-establishment. And then we have Trump now, and he goes under the he's seen as very anti-establishment, and we see media as attacking him with false information, but at the same time we also see false information in supporting him in places like Fox News, etc. The military-industrial complex looks like it's going down over here, but it looks like it's being propped up over here. And I have to ask, this has caused a vast amount of divide among the populace. People are fighting themselves instead of the real enemy. Is there a concerted effort to divide the populace? I wouldn't say just using Donald Trump, but using this, dog and pony show of politics.
Oh, that's a wonderful, wonderful question. And it builds so beautifully off of, when my hopes on the Hill were shattered by watching the chairman, and, they walked out arm in arm. It was all a charade. Okay, so I would go back to Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, and he outlines the mechanisms of oppression and the tools for liberation. The mechanisms of oppression are conquest, manipulation, divide and rule, and cultural invasion. The tools for liberation are cooperation, organization, unity for liberation, and cultural synthesis. So now, what does all of that really mean? What it means is that one of those tools that has been shown to be tried and true is divide and rule. So if we can balkanize the population, put everybody into their little silo, then you're absolutely right. Nobody will be paying attention to the people who are doing the balkanizing. And that was the point of my remarks yesterday, that I wanted the audience to understand that we are what we are today because some people had a plan a long time ago, and they, like my campaign manager said, make your plan, work your plan, and your plan will work for you. And that's exactly what we're seeing now.
And do you see there to be a problem with, people expecting government to change things rather than you, the individual? Are we just apathetic? Are we just sitting here looking at, oh, well, Trump is going to drain the swamp and change everything. We can just sit down and relax until the next election. Do you find that is kind of starting to happen or has been happening since the election?
Well, I certainly hope not, because, I think that the Hillary Clinton record was one that certainly, absolutely did not warrant her being rewarded with the Oval Office. So there was no way that I would be supportive of a Hillary Clinton presidency. Now we've got to the point where, okay, we have to maintain that same vigilance with this president. And if we don't, then if we fall into that trap of complacency or even worse, maybe apathy, that you're talking about, then we will deserve everything that we get. So that's why I'm here at the Red Pill Expo, because, and I love those young people at Anarchapulco. Oh my goodness, you talk about one day saying, man, this country is in bad shape. And another day saying, wow, the young people are our hope, And so you go to Anarchapulco and you emerge energized and with hope, because you see young people who get it. They understand what's happening. They understand that politics is a swamp. Washington, D.C. is a swamp. System is rigged. Maybe the system was only rigged against a few people, but now the system is rigged almost against everybody. And so that Deutsche Bank statistic that 1/10 of 1% of the wealth of the people of the U.S. own as much as 90% of the rest of us. I mean, this is like a transformation is taking place before our very eyes, and they don't want us to see it. But there was a investigative journalist who sent me something. What was it, like about 2000 and maybe 10. And basically what he did was he listed the Fortune 500 companies, and he listed the majority shareholders prior to 2007, so-called economic crisis. Been talking too much. And then he listed the ones as of like 2009. A new crew. So basically, there was a study that was done by some organization, and the article reported that now there were 3 corporations that were majority, or that were the largest shareholder in all of the Fortune 500 companies. 3. And they're not the same 3 that were prior to 2007. So basically, if the U.S. economy is the Titanic, the chairs on the deck were switched. And now those people who used to own the United States no longer own the United States, and a new crew do. Now, what does that tell us? This is something that I predicted. I'm not the only one. I took it to Michael Hudson. Michael Hudson said, absolutely yes. I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Hudson. He's an economist. And so basically, what happened in the Soviet Union under Gorbachev and Russia under Boris Yeltsin was that the state-owned enterprises, SOEs, the state-owned enterprises in the Soviet Union, the people had been drained of all of their wealth, all of their income, all of their money, all of their savings went down to pennies on a dollar or pennies on a ruble. And so when the time came for the sale of the state-owned enterprises, nobody was able to buy. And the entire economy of the Soviet Union / Russia fell into the hands of 11 people. And that's who we call the oligarchs. Now you have to have that background to understand what's going on in 2016, 17, and 18 with Trump. Because the attack on Russia and the attack on the Russians and the attack on Trump and the Russians is not an attack on Trump because he was trying to do business with Russia. Because remember, he was trying to do business with Russia and the Russians turned him down. He didn't get what he wanted. But this is about Trump and his relationship with those 11 oligarchs in Russia. This is completely different. And if you don't get it, it goes right over your head, right? Okay. And then you've got these people who made their plan, worked their plan was working for them, and then all of a sudden Trump comes in and blindsides everybody and knocks them out of the way. And the friends, thank you so much, and the friends of the oligarchs over there are the ones now who have their control over the U.S.